Hello and welcome to another episode of Doughnuts I Dug. In this episode we're going to take a look at the Cake, Bake and Sweet Expo. I didn't know for sure, but I was pretty sure there was going to be donuts at this expo. It didn't take too long, and the first shop I found, I asked the owner, "What makes your donuts better than the rest?" His response was potato. I'm not going to lie, it didn't look good, didn't smell good, it presented very pale and anemic. Unfortunately, it was dry and kind of gross. Considering it was so expensive, I'm not going to go back, and I would be surprised if anyone did. I don't like being mean, but I'd give this only about a 3 out of 10. Shortly after this, I came across a table of what looked like beautiful donuts. They presented really well and were really well packaged. They turned out to be dog treats. Not for me, but I applaud the initiative. There's probably plenty of shops here that I probably should have spent more time at given how much donut I like to eat. Given that I was only really here to sample the donuts, I was pleased to see some kind of boutique alcohol places to check out, and they were quite generous with their samples. I even tried the hottest gin in the world. They only gave me a few drops. People watched to see what kind of reaction I would have, and I think that they were underwhelmed. I think for anyone who's got a mild interest in making cakes, this place is pretty good, but for me it's really just more interesting. So far, the donut situation had been kind of disappointing, but there was still a lot more to explore, and eventually I came across what turned out to be the best donut stall on the day. Compared to the last donut stall, this place had a lot of attention. I spoke to the owner and we had a little discussion about donuts, so I got myself a Kinder Bueno donut and a pink donut with sprinkles. It took me about 3 bites to get to this beautiful kind of creamy center. It was fresh and delicious. My only complaint would be that the filling was too dense in one place, not spread evenly, so it was kind of hard to get a good balance. It was either too sweet or there was no filling to be found, but it still deserves a solid 8.5 out of 10. Next up was the strawberry donut, and man, it was so good. By this point, I already had a taste for the dough, and I knew that this guy had a pretty good icing game, but I was not prepared for how good this donut was going to be. A beautiful balance of sweetness to dough, a beautiful flavor of strawberry, a generous size, a soft and luscious sort of texture. This easily gets a 9 out of 10, and I feel pretty sure at this point that no one's going to do better than this. Anyway, moving right along. The show went on, and there was plenty of non-donut things to look at. It was disappointing to see how many non-donut events there were. It was very interesting to see what was on display. I did come across this area where people had submitted their non-donuts. There was some crazy stuff here. This was probably the next best thing. And one of them was sort of upside down, but not upside down. I tried to sort of film it. I can't imagine the sort of time they put into this. One of them had live fish inside of it. But from looking at all these non-donuts, there was one that stood out to me as the best, and that was the depiction of the evil queen from Snow White, who had this kind of really funny, cheeky smile, which probably wasn't intentional, but I loved it. And the apple looked more like a pomegranate. Anyway, enough about non-donuts. There was one more stall left which I had not sampled, and I'd been circling it, but I wasn't really sure. I wanted to try them, but they kind of looked like they were so not worth the money. So much effort had gone into decorating them, I had to know if they were actually good. From talking to the owner, I learned that none of these donuts actually taste any different from each other. This was the most manly looking donut on the shelf. Turns out the icing was actually tempered chocolate, so they were rock hard. The chocolate was sort of nice, but so inflexible it's almost impossible to eat. Everything just kind of falls apart. Probably the prettiest donut I've ever eaten to date. 10 points for effort. But overall, I think I'd give this, say, a 5 out of 10. Not really a donut I dug. Only one of those 3 stalls had a really good donut. This was the best donut that I had dug. Anyway, some really good memories. Thanks for watching, and join me next time as we explore more of the world of donut.